Peace in the storm. I've been away from that message for the last few weeks, dealing with other things that God had led me to speak about. But peace in the storm came about as George and I were in prayer at 5 o'clock one morning, and God just spoke, this is to be your next series, and to basically take each one of the letters of the words peace in the storm, and that'll be a message. And I started off with P equals person, and then E was everywhere, A, attitude, C, companion, E, excellence, I, indigo, N, nerves, T, thief, what I actually did 3 messages on thief, and today H. And the H represents hospitality. Peace in the storm, hospitality. Now, the dictionary definition of hospitality is kindness in welcoming strangers or guests. Kindness in welcoming strangers or guests. Basically, it's how you treat people who really you don't know, who you're not that close to. It's how accommodating, how kind, how providing you are to others, and how you're going to help other people's needs and see about other folk. And when they come into your presence, how do you treat them when they come into your presence or you go into their presence? That was a story of this good man, and he was walking down a mall and he saw this little girl crying, and he stopped, and his heart was touched by her tears, and he asked her, "Little girl, what's wrong?" And she says, "I had $200 and I lost my $200. And the man went in his wallet, he took out 2 20s, and he gave her $40. And he walked on. And then he said to himself, I found $200 when I walked into this mall, and you have to pay it forward. Now that was taking y'all a minute to get that. But Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2 says this: do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Some have entertained angels unawares. Now, usually when we think of this verse, and we've heard this verse multiple times, we often think of the literal, the ethereal, the heavenly type of angel. But there are other kinds of angels. Sometimes there are literally human angels. No one has a glass wallet or a glass heart, meaning you cannot see, you do not know what's in anyone's wallet. You know, the credit card, Capital One has this advertising slogan, what's in your wallet? You don't know what's in anyone's wallet, nor do you know what is in anyone's heart. I told you the story before when I was in Nigeria, and all of the circumstances. I ended up having to preach at this church, and when I got there, there was a prophet in the church, and it was in the middle of this revival, and God had told me, I want you to give this church the largest donation they've ever had, and many of you in this congregation participated in sending them that money. And the pastor told me, the prophet had told us before this revival began that he was going to send an angel in the midst of the revival. And when you got here, the prophet got him and said, that's the angel God is sending. So sometimes an angel is not an ethereal being, it's not a heavenly being, it's you. And you can be an angel, and that's why the Bible says when you're entertaining strangers, you may be entertaining angels unawares, and you cannot tell by looking at somebody what they are about. I was in another city, and I was walking down the street, and I saw this food bank, and I walked into the food bank, and God just led me to make a sizable donation to it. I was going to give $500. And there was a lady working in the food bank, and they had a lot of homeless people all around the food bank. And I told the lady, I said, I'd like to make a donation. And she said, well, how much you want to make? I said, about $500. And she looked at me, because I'm dressed in blue jeans and coming in off the street. She said, you got $500? See, you can't judge somebody by how they look or where they're coming from. She thought I was just a bum off of the street, so she had no idea. She looked at me. I wasn't dressed fancy, and then maybe if I had on a suit and a tie, it would have made a difference. But no, I was sweaty. It was hot outside. I'm walking. She just looked at me and said, you got $500? She was basically saying, I don't believe the way you looking that you can possibly bless us. This must be some kind of scam. You must want something. I just don't even believe you can bless it. You cannot judge sometimes whether you are entertaining an angel unaware. Be they ethereal or heavenly, or be they human. So you need to treat everybody like they were angels. You need to treat everybody good. You need to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, because you do not know what is in their wallet and you do not know what is in their heart. And the very person who could bless your socks off may have holes in the knees on their jeans. The toes may be sticking out of their shoes. You see, people who really have a whole lot, often they don't show it. They walk around in just plain old clothes. They're not fancy, because a lot of times they don't want people to even know who they are. And the other thing about it, they don't have anything to prove to anybody. Right. So they don't have to try to impress you. Sam Walton, who was one of the wealthiest men, he drove an F-150 pickup truck. So if you saw a man pulling up to church in an F-150 pickup truck, you would say, this man can't do that much for me. I need a man pulling up on a Rolls. And Sam Walton could have literally bought the whole Rolls-Royce company, but yet he drove a pickup truck. Sometimes you can entertain angels unawares, and you don't know who they are. So when the Bible made this verse, we often just think of it's a heavenly angels that once they get out of our sight, they're going to sprout wings and fly up. No. Sometimes it's a human. It's a red-blooded soul just like you. But God will lay something on their heart. He'll put something in their mind and vision. And then he'll provide the resources to seriously bless you. But you can be mean to them. And you just never know who you are dealing with. The root of the word hospitality is the same root word for hospital. It's hospes, H-O-S-P-E-S, which also means guest, visitor, host, stranger, foreigner, hospice, hospital, host, hostel, and hotel and motel, which is just a motor hotel. So this word that's a root of hospitality is actually the root of most of our recovery centers. A hospice is a place where you go to die. A hospital is a place where you go to recover from or get treated with an illness. So our hospitality often will help to transform people and to take them out of a point of sickness to a point of health. Because most of the sickness in this country is not physical, it's mental and emotional. But oftentimes just a welcoming soul, your hospitality. Do you know sometimes coming to church, we don't do it now because of COVID, but just a hug? Do you know what a hug does? Because the majority of people don't get hugs. And just the physical contact. See, if you think about what is the sense that is with us first and stays with us the longest, it's the sense of touch. As you get older, all your other senses start failing, but you still have the sense of touch. you're able to feel it. And just the hospitality, that's why even just a handshake or just a hug or just a pat on the back, sometimes just showing hospitality. And when you show it to someone that you're not particularly close to, it actually impacts the person even greater. A stranger can touch you more than someone who's very close to you, because sometimes when they're close to you, they just take it for granted. But if it's a stranger, it's something about you just remember it more when it's a stranger. And I've got this command to just help someone every day. And sometimes the help is just in telling them. I was coming through the airport yesterday, and I had on my shirt that simply says Coach B.TV, 1 minute free life coaching. And I'm going through the security line. And the TSA agent, it's a young lady, she probably is in her early 20s. She just stopped. She got me, she put her hand on him. She said, give me 1 minute of life coaching. I'm saying to myself, I was sitting here going through, putting my stuff on the bed. She just stops. And she says, give me 1 minute of free life coaching. And I wasn't ready for it. It caught me so much off guard, because this had never happened to me before. And I was in the middle of something. I missed the opportunity. And I just couldn't do that, but just in this, and I was just flabbergasted because I wasn't prepared for it. There are people, and I could have, and when I walked past and I thought about it, I should have been able to tell her something in less than 60 seconds that could have impacted her life. And it was a stranger. She didn't know me, I didn't know her. But often I don't even like to use the prophetic gift that God has given me, even when folk ask. And some of you will come across those similar opportunities. And they may not say it the way this young lady said it. Give me some life coaching in 1 minute. They may not say it like that. They may say it to you in code. I've had a real rough day today. Things just tough. Oh, I'm feeling so down right now. I'm just tired. And it'll be a code that simply is saying to you, give me some hospitality. Give me some life coaching. Pat me on the back. Give me a hug. It's a word that's coming to you, and you may be entertaining an angel. Og Mandino says this: beginning today, treat everyone you meet as if they were going to be dead by midnight. Extend to them all of the care, kindness, and understanding you can muster, and do it with no thought of any reward. Your life will never be the same again. That was Og Mandino, and he was saying treat everybody as if they were going to be dead by midnight, but all of us are dying. It's not a matter of if we die, it's a matter of when. And when you can get the encouragement and the hospitality, all of us are in a hospital of some sort because all of us are wounded. All of us have scrapes and sprains and pains and stuff that we are dealing with, and all of us need the medicine of care and hospitality. I don't know anyone who doesn't appreciate a sincere, genuine, warm hug.
¿En serio? ¿Regalas abrazos?
Regaló abrazos. Gracias.
And sometimes if you can just see and hear the person when they're calling out, give me a minute. Give me a minute. But sometimes we're so big. I was trying to get through that line. I was trying to get through that line to get through my flight. I was trying to see about me. And sometimes when you hear that voice of someone calling, give me a minute, we've got to be able to take our minds off of our stuff and focus on somebody else, even if it is just for a minute. Because sometimes opportunities to entertain an angel only comes once. And you may miss that opportunity. And I have to say to myself, I'll do my best not to miss that opportunity again. Luke chapter 14, beginning at verse 12, the NIV version, Jesus says this. Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Jesus takes it a whole step further. He said, don't worry about entertaining the folk you know, the folk who are close to you, your rich folk, the folk who can do what's called the quid pro quo. It basically means tit for tat. You do for me, I do for you. If I do this for you, I expect you to do something for me. Basically, Jesus said, look, you do something for the people who cannot repay you in any form or fashion. It's all going one way, but in God's kingdom, stuff is never one way. You can never do something good that does not return to you multiplied. So Jesus is saying, he said, look, you help folk who have no way to repay you back. You are operating in a totally unselfish manner. I want to read this study to you. New research out of Brigham Young University finds service to strangers has benefits that go beyond the immediate feelings and consequences. The study, published in the Journal of Adolescence, found that youth who exhibited pro-social behavior, such as helping, sharing, and comforting people they did not know, had higher self-esteem a year later. In this longitudinal study, we found that when teenagers reported pro-social behavior towards strangers, but not family or friends, this was associated with feelings of higher self-worth 1 year later. In other words, helping those with whom teens did not have a relationship was associated with feeling better about themselves. This was true at all 4 ages we assessed these relations, suggesting it is a consistent finding across early adolescence. The current study is also unique in finding that this relationship is unique to pro-social behavior or helping behavior towards strangers. So here is a research paper that backs up what Jesus is talking about. And they did this with teenagers ranging from 11 up into the latter teenage years. And what they found was when they helped strangers, they felt better about themselves a whole year later. You spend a minute, and that minute blesses you for years down the road. But we often are so, the world right now, it's so centered on what we can get. And if we do something, we got this motive in mind. Don't try to help me. Help somebody who can't benefit you. Help someone who is a stranger, and it impacts the stranger tremendously more. When I have to help somebody every day, it just makes a big difference. I remember somebody just telling me how sharp my tie was walking through the airport. That's been 10 years ago. And all they told me, that's a real sharp tie. I didn't make the tie. I didn't even pick the tie. I just had the tie on. But I still remember that 10 years ago. Sometimes a warm hug, a warm word can last a person 10 years, but it also benefits you a year later. But we're so focused on only putting our energy into places and people that can benefit us. When we're talking about getting a network, we're talking about a network to help bring us stuff. But what about your heavenly network? What about helping somebody who absolutely has no way to return it to you? Helping strangers, helping people who cannot repay you. And the article goes on to say the best thing parents can do is to provide high-quality opportunities for young people to serve strangers. By high quality, I mean that youth need to be able to see the positive impact of their behavior. Studies have shown that when teenagers get involved in volunteering, especially high-quality volunteering, they are more likely to continue it throughout their lives. There's a difference in the servant spirit. There's a difference to being a good host. We have a luncheon at our company once a month, and the brothers are actually on the serving line once every quarter. I did it for the first time the last luncheon, and I felt better serving than I did being served. You know, it's hard to explain, but I felt better. I was there. I think Elijah was he was dishing out the macaroni and cheese and the string beans. And I was dishing out, what did I have, Elijah? I think I had the cornbread dressing and gravy. So we were there scooping out onto these folks' plates, and everybody was coming by, and Elijah was just scooping out macaroni and cheese and scooping out macaroni and cheese and scooping out macaroni and cheese. And I was just scooping out cornbread dressing and gravy. But we were just as happy as we could be, and I was happier serving than I was being served. And for some of you, you need a refocusing, and you need to serve. I was watching Christian's son Noah yesterday, and I was just watching the interactions of the adults. And this little baby who just turned 4 months old can't do anything to help anybody. He can't do anything to help anybody. He can't even turn over on his own. So he can't do anything to help anybody. But I just saw the joy of just when people were petting and comforting the baby. It just brought a smile. And the baby could do nothing in return. But yet, when you help others who cannot help you, there's something about it. Now, baby may be a different type of emotion. But what the studies have shown, it works that way with humans. And when even people have been given money, and they've been given money, and they say, spend the money on yourself or spend the money on others, they find that when they spend the money on others, their happiness is way greater. So Jesus, the principle of what he talked about, of helping strangers and helping those in need who cannot repay you, it's backed up with the scientific psychological studies. It makes you happier. And it may be one reason why Americans have so much antidepressant is because we're so focused inward. And we're so focused on what we can get, and we're not focused on what we can give. And when you focus on what you can get, it's a whole different spirit than when you're focused on what we can give. Hospitality makes a difference. And even in that vein, I asked if Elijah and I today, if we can just serve the tea downstairs. So right after service, we're going to hustle right on downstairs. So normally we'll stand here and talk with you, but we're going to hustle right on downstairs. So if you come to get your tea today, it will be served by the brothers of the word. And the tea is better serving it to other folk than it is drinking it myself. It's something about it. And for some of you who are in the church and you're just sitting, you may want to try serving. That's why Jesus told the disciples, those among you who would be great must be the servant of all. If you want to be great, serve great. And that thing brings a peace and a joy inside of you. It works. It works. It works. So just go and try serving, 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 and serve with the thought in mind, I'm not asking for anything in return, nor am I seeking, nor am I serving people who can do something for me. Serve folk who cannot do anything for you. And there's a joy and a long-lasting peace. And Jesus says they get their reward in the resurrection. But it's not just in the resurrection. You get your reward here because your joy goes up. Peace in the storm, hospitality is one of those elements. Serve, serve, serve. We thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word. You can go to brothersoftheword.com. You can listen to this entire series of Peace in the Storm absolutely free. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And I'm going to ask George to come and close us out today. He was there with me, and he came up with half of the words and half the subjects in the Peace in the Storm series.
Last night, I just got back from Texas, and I think I know where I want to live when I grow up, but the city was beautiful. It had an excellent spirit to it, but it wasn't so much the city, but more so what we did while we were there. Now, for those that have known me for years, and I mean like decades, you'll have realized that my personality and social outgoingness has changed a lot over the years. When I was like real young, middle school, I was super social. I even remember whenever I was in elementary, dancing with my cousins, just break dancing in the middle of the living room. And thinking about that now, I could not see myself doing that in any semblance of the way. Then came high school, and I became much more socially shy. And it kind of became ingrained. But while I was on this trip, I tried to change that to an extent, primarily in little ways. It started even in the airport while I was going there. And I just looked at this individual as I was going through TSA, and I couldn't help but feel on my spirit to say, they look like somebody that's real important. And so I did. I stood next to them. I looked up. They were a tall individual, broad shoulders. They had a confident posture. They legitimately looked like somebody who was real important. And when I told them, all they did was chuckle a little bit. They said they appreciated it and they were going to tell their wife. It was a little thing that seemingly had a big impact for them. And while I was in Texas, I would try each day to do something like that. And each time that I did it, it seemingly had a similar impact. On the last day, the last full day, walked past a crowd of people, and the first person I was going to say something to, they actually walked away. But I was still confident on saying something. The last person was dressed rather nicely. They were all in suits, probably a wedding party. And I simply told them, I like the suit. You look like you're ready for an Oscar. And not only did they smile, but the whole group did. It brought joy to the group, and while it took from me a bit of conscious action, as I am still fairly socially shy, still work towards it, and it brought a lot of positive. The last thing that I will say in regards to actions that I took was simply with everybody that I walked past, I tried to smile and nod. And I was even thinking of short sentences that I could possibly say. How are you doing today? What's the vibe? And I know that most people won't even reply to it, but they'll hear it. I know that most people won't even nod back, but they'll see it. And I don't know if it'll positively impact them, but all I can do is try. And these little actions can have big impacts in people's lives. I remember in middle school, there were instances like that for me, especially 8th grade. At the school that I went to, they had shifted that year, and the high school wasn't 9th to 12th, it was 8th to 12th. Now I was even younger, even smaller than the freshmen, with a whole bunch of big kids around me. A pretty intimidating experience. But there were a couple people that I remembered in particular for the small things that they did. There was a senior. I don't even remember his name, but I remember he would always say, "What's good, little dude?" And it was effective. It put a smile on my face, and it let me feel as though I was safe. He was on the basketball team. He was a solid 6'4" like my dad. He was huge. And it made me feel safe. Back then, I used to get hair designs. And you would have mixed responses. At one point, I had wings on the side of each of my head. And one of the juniors, also on the basketball team, had said, George got those wings because he's fly. It was simple, but it put a smile on my face, and I even remember it today. These things impact people. They truly do, for years to come and even in the time now. Even if they don't reply to you, do something simple. Every day, find somebody, say something positive to them. A simple remark. I like your shoes. I like your skin. You're glowing in the sun. There's so many things that we can say, but many times there's just a mental boundary that we have to get over. Also, in Texas, there was a pill. I had the worst cramp of my life. And my dad had offered me potassium pills to help with the cramps. It was the largest pill I had ever seen before. And I didn't think I was gonna be able to swallow it. Not only did I have to get one down, but I had to get down 3. I didn't have any applesauce, only water. I was thinking this is impossible. My dad was telling me it's just in your head. Once you get down the first one, you'll never have any problems swallowing these again. And so, I kept trying. It took several attempts, but I finally got the first one down. And then the next one was just as easy. And I ultimately ended up getting all 3, and it was just in my head, like my dad had said. The trip to Texas taught me several things. How you treat people is definitely remembered, whether positive or negative, whether neutral or just outstanding. I know even one person, they actually asked me how I was doing, and I responded, fantastic, how are you? And there was a look of shock written on their face, as though not only did they not expect a response, but they surely weren't expecting a fantastic or how are you too. So I'll say in closing, really, just remember, how you treat people, even with just a simple nod, can truly change their days, their months, and their years to come. If I walk past you and I don't nod, that's because it's not a subconscious action yet. I just wasn't thinking about actively doing it. But I will tell one last story, and it's the one that's been most impactful for me from going to Texas. And it was when I was getting off of the plane. There was a young lady, and she just had a really peaceful presence. And I wanted to tell her, but I simply couldn't bring myself to do it. So I said another positive thing. And she responded with a super jovial tone, and I could just hear it in her voice. And she was a positive individual even in adversity. She had just missed her flight. Our plane had been delayed, so her next one she missed. But I could see it in her eyes that were basically tearing up, that she was experiencing internal pain and sorrow, but that didn't stop her from being positive on the outward. She didn't know me. I was a stranger, yet I could tell that she still wanted to be a positive light in a dark time. What stops you from doing the same? Have a good night, everybody.